Welcome back to Novel Idea. My name is Dia, and today we are going to do a Friday Reads. So this is just where I talk to you about the books that I've read this past week and what I'm in the middle of and maybe what's up next. And so without further ado, let's just jump into it. I have 5 books that I completed and 1 book that I DNF'd. So let's start with the DNF. So the one that I decided I wasn't going to read was the one that I picked up randomly at the library the other day called Flowers of Mold. And it was for Women in Translation Month, and it ended up being, well, they were horror stories to me. I am a wimp. I do not read horror, and so maybe they weren't quite horror to someone else, but they were to me. So I ended up just setting that aside and saying, no, I can read something else for Women in Translation. I don't need to read that. And that was by Seong-Nan. So the first book that I completed this last week was the summer book. And this is by Tove Jannson. And it is translated from the Swedish by Mike Teal. It was a gem of a book. I found out later, after completing the book, that Tove Jannson is the author of all of the Moomin books, and those characters are so delightful and just so charming. So it doesn't surprise me that this little book was in that same tone and that same vein. The summer book, she manages in this book to completely capture the glory of summer on an island. Now, this is not your typical island. This is an island in the Gulf of Norway, I think, and it is literally a rock that rises out of the sea, and it's not got any kind of sandy beaches or little tide pools or that kind of thing. And yet, this feels so magical without any actual fantastical or fantasy elements in the book. It's magical simply because of the elements of nature and just that feeling of wonder and childhood. It's a really good reminder that you can find the beautiful, that you can find the magical, not just looking at the things around you, but really seeing those things and wondering at them, wondering about them, that brings magic into our lives. This is about Sophia, who is 6, and her grandmother. And her father is on the island as well, but we don't get much of his interaction at all. It's mainly just Sophia and the grandmother. So one of the things that I love about having elders interacting with children in stories is that they teach you to really investigate life. And this grandmother is no different. There are some very sweet, very tender, very poignant things that happen that come simply from being with the grandmother. So this isn't an action-packed story. There's not a lot that happens in this book. It is simply the day-to-day. Each chapter is a new little vignette. It's a new little story. And it's very tender and seemingly inconspicuous. And each story, you see kind of an unveiling of these insights into the human condition. And they become kind of guideposts for Sophia. And there's this moment in the book where Sophia comes upon her grandmother in this little wood behind their little cabin. Her grandmother goes to and sits and carves these little animals. So I wanted to read you just a little paragraph about the grandmother carving these little figures in the wood. She cut them from branches and driftwood and gave them paws and faces, but she only ever hinted at what they looked like and never made them too distinct. They retained their wooden soles, and the curve of their backs and their legs had the enigmatic shape of the growth itself, and they remained a part of the decaying forest. Grandmother worked only in wood that had already found its own form. That is, she saw and selected those pieces of wood that expressed already what she wanted them to say. Tove doesn't preach, doesn't force a meaning to something. It's like I said about these things becoming guideposts for Sophia. That's actually what they do for us as well. It's just this guidepost. It's this marker, this mile marker. And it tells you maybe that, you know, this goes down this way and this is ahead or this is back behind us. But she doesn't force you to make one decision, and she doesn't push you to believe that all of that is true. She just says, here's the mile marker, here's the guidepost, this is what it says, this is what it could actually mean. But then she leaves you to find those things for yourself and believe those things for yourself. And I'm pretty sure that this is at least semi-autobiographical, because it just feels very personal. It was beautiful. 98%, strong, 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 A+. So the next book that I wanted to tell you guys about that I finished this week is Inkdeath. And this is the third book in the Ink World trilogy by Cornelia Funke. And I've heard that said Funk, and I've heard that said Funke. I don't know how to pronounce it really, so I'm going with Funke. Funke. And this is the conclusion to the trilogy, so I don't want to tell you too much, but I will say that it was a very good ending. I really enjoyed being back in this world. It took me a long time between Inkheart, Inkspell to read Inkdeath. I think I read Inkspell probably 2.5 years ago. I am so happy that I finished it, and I am so happy that I got to be back in this world with Mo and Meggie and Rissa. Conclusion was not exactly what I thought that it would be. Everything that I wanted to happen did happen, but it wasn't quite what I expected in some ways. And in other ways, it far surpassed what I expected. This was an A for me. I gave this a 95%. I should probably tell you a little bit about Inkheart to give you kind of a feel for what the trilogy is about. So Inkheart, there is a family who have the ability to read a story and have it kind of come to life. They can transport people into the story that they are reading. Inkheart is about somebody that was put into a story that they have been trying to get to for many years. Then the trilogy goes on from there. There is an antagonist who is also one of these people that can read certain stories and put himself into it, or write certain stories and have himself be put into it. And the magic system in it is very unique. I've never heard of anything like that before. And so yeah, I enjoyed Inkheart, I enjoyed Inkspell, and I enjoyed Inkdeath. So my ink world is complete. And then I read a very popular book right now called Legends and Lattes, and this is by Travis Baldree, and it is, they're calling it a high fantasy with low stakes, but I don't see high fantasy in this. So it is about an orc who is done being a battle orc. She just wants to be finished. She wants to retire and open a coffee shop, and she has done her homework and she knows what town she needs to open this coffee shop in. She doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in herself though, and so she relies on an artifact that is supposed to have special things happen to somebody who possesses it. She begins to find people to help her, and this becomes so much a story of community and found family, the power of friendship, the incredible gift that something can be to a community that didn't even know that they needed it. What kindness does. It's just this really wonderful story in that way. To be honest, when I look at the cover of this book, right here, this cover, when I look at the cover of this book, it makes me think graphic novel or comic, or it just feels like a very bubblegum kind of cover. And I think that it is kind of, you know, cozy, sweet in that way. But I wish that it would have been a little bit more serious art, I guess, because I feel like what this book communicates is very deep, and it communicates it very well. But I almost couldn't take it seriously because every time I see the cover, I would think that it was just cutesy. So I don't think the cover, I like the cover art, don't get me wrong, I like it. I think it's wonderful. I just don't think that for the book, it was necessarily the right cover art, if that makes any sense. But nonetheless, this was a B+ read for me. I gave this an 88%. I knew right from the beginning that everything was going to be okay. There were no big high stakes in this for me. I knew that all was going to be well. Nobody that I liked was going to die. I knew everything was going to come right. And so it was just a very comforting kind of read, and I really liked it. So that was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, and again, B+ read. And I finished a surprising book again that I expected to be a cozy mystery. It's called The Accidental Alchemist. It's written by Gigi Pandian, or Pandian, it could be Pandian. I am in the middle of Faustathon, and I wasn't picking this book up for Faustathon, and it ended up being sort of Faustian. It is about an alchemist who is hundreds of years old because she found the sorcerer's stone, basically, accidentally. She was training in alchemy and was training with, it's the same guy as created the sorcerer's stone in Harry Potter. Nicholas Flaubert? No, Flamer? So the same name as the guy in Harry Potter that created it. I can't remember, Nicholas something. And she's trying to save her brother who is sick and ends up creating the sorcerer's stone, and he has since passed away, and she finds out quite by accident that she has done this, ends up living for hundreds of years. And so she takes the name Zoe Faust because she survives and continues on with life after life after life. And she currently is in Portland, Oregon, and has bought a house to fix up. And she opens her box of alchemy supplies, of tinctures and all of that kind of stuff, to find that there is a living gargoyle in one of her boxes. And he has a special book. And that book is supposed to help Zoe know how to stop the turning to stone process that his body has begun to go through. So basically what happened is his creator, whoever carved him from stone, was also an alchemist. And he somehow gave this gargoyle life, but then proceeded to die himself. And so the gargoyle is now not wanting to die, not wanting to turn to stone, and he has come to ask Zoe to help. So she's trying to remodel this house, figure out this mystery that's kind of going on the side, in this little part of town that she is in, and also save a gargoyle from eternal stone death. So it was not fast-paced. It was really fun though, and it was a great surprise to be in the middle of Faustathon and stumble upon this story. And so I just really enjoyed it, and I gave this A-. So it was 90% for me, and it's not great literature or anything like that, but it was just a good story. And I think that it's the first in a series, so I will have to look and see if I can go on with it. Okay, and now we come to the final book, and this is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and this is by Susannah Clarke, who is also the author of Piranesi. My copy that I read was well over 1,000 pages. It was too long, in my opinion. When I started reading it, it was not going to be for Faustathon. I was just reading it because it came in. It was a hold that I had at the library. It came in, I was gonna read it. And then somebody mentioned that it was a Faust book. And so I ended up reading it for Faustathon. So in case you don't know the story, the general story of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is that England, it's like an alternate history. And England has not seen actual magic in like 300 years. But they do have a society of well-respected magicians who basically do nothing but sit around and talk about magic and try to keep the ideas and knowledge of magic alive. Norrell comes on the scene and actually does magic. And we find out that he does this magic for a very Faustian reason. So the story is divided up into books, and I honestly don't know why she didn't make this into a series, because I mean, 1,000 pages is a lot. It would be probably much more digestible if it was divided up into those books. So it's divided up into books, and the first one is for Mr. Norrell. The second one is for Jonathan Strange. And the last one is for another character who is seen as the reason magic is no longer in England. And it's because he went away supposedly and is going to return, but it is not known when, and it's not even known for sure that he is going to return. It's just kind of this thing that he has followers and believers that want him to. Mr. Norrell, in order to prove that he can wield magic, he basically raises someone from the dead. And it's the fiance of somebody who is very important. And so because he does that, and because she seems like she's perfectly normal, he gains a lot of respect. A few years down the road, Jonathan Strange comes on the scene, and he too is able to do magic. And he feels that the teachings of this man who is no longer in England, who is supposed to be returning, that we need his teachings, and we need to practice magic the way that his teachings outline also. And Mr. Norrell is like, no, 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 no. But those, we find out, are for selfish reasons. So it's this story basically of this power struggle between Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and what the deal that Mr. Norrell made in order to be able to wield the magic that he does, how that affects the lives of everyone around him, including his own. And I actually really liked the conclusion of the story, but like I said, it was just too long for me. I think that it could have been condensed immensely. I gave this a B-. For me, it's not something I will ever read again. I am glad that I read it. If it wouldn't have been for the fact that I found out that it was Faustian, and that I could put it toward my Faustathon board, I probably wouldn't have finished it. I didn't really love any of the characters. Actually, there was one. And that's probably the reason why it was too long. It's just because I just didn't care. So, Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrell, B-, 82 maybe. And those are the books that I read this week. So what am I in the middle of? I am in the middle of Jade City, written by Fonda Lee, and it's book 1 in the Greenbone saga. And so far, I'm really liking it. I am also reading 100 Shadows for Women in Translation. It's very weird. It's one of those translated books that whoever translated it is not an English first language speaker, probably. It reads like I remember Koreans speaking English. So they speak it often in a very literal manner rather than in a conversational manner. So let me grab the book because, oh no, it's right here. I don't have to get it. Let me read this to you. Very indicative of the rest of the book. And this happens at the very beginning. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? So the characters' names are Muje and Ungyo and Muje. I'm gonna do my best to read this conversation. I'm cold, Muje. That's because you're standing still. I feel like I could die. What do you mean you could die? I'm just saying I feel like I could die. Is that just your way of talking? I feel like I could die, that's all. Muje wiped away the sap with his sleeve, then straightened up and looked me right in the eye. Should we die then? Right here? He added. I looked at Muje as if seeing him for the first time. His black eyes peered down at me. His hair, usually somewhat disheveled, had been subdued by the rain. Ungyo, he said, don't say you feel like you're going to die if you don't really plan on dying. Is that just your way of talking? It's just funny. It's funny. So I'm trying to follow it. I'm on page 52. So that's where I am with that one. Did I tell you that this is by Jungeun Hwang? And it's translated by Han Kang from the Korean. It's just strange, you guys. I don't know exactly, I don't even know exactly what's happening yet. I'm 50 pages in. I only have 100 pages left to go. Not even. And I still am not quite sure what's happening. Okay. I'm also reading Wolf by Wolf, is by Ryan Graudin. And I have not even cracked it open yet. I picked it up from the library just moments before I started this video. And then I also will be beginning Bitter Twins, which is book 2 in the Winnowing Flame trilogy by Jen Williams. And I'm really looking forward to that. Loved book 1. So that is what I am in the middle of and what I will be moving on to. And that is everything for me this week. I am going to be going to a baby shower tomorrow because my daughter-in-law is expecting twins and we're having a shower for her tomorrow. So I'll be off doing that. So looking forward to getting to celebrate these new little fellas that are on their way. It's going to be a good weekend. Our air conditioning went out last night and we called the people and they came first thing right away. I think it was like 9:30 this morning and they were here. We only had to go one evening like that, so that was nice. What are your weekend plans, everybody? Have you had a good reading week? Also wanted to ask about a 150, 200 subscriber. I'm past 150 mark at this point. I'm on my way to 200, but I'd be willing to go ahead and do some sort of special video to say thank you to everybody that has subscribed to the channel. But I had put up just a little short to ask people to let me know, and I only had just a couple responses from that. So if you have something that you would like to see me do to celebrate being on BookTube and having this community of subscribers, I would love to know what it is that you would like to see me do. And I will do my best to put a video together, and we will do a Q&A if that's what you would like. I could do a little giveaway if that's what you would like. We can get my husband on here, maybe. I think he probably would come on. And we could do a little Q&A with him if you want to. Just anything that you guys would like to see me do, just let me know that either in the comments or direct message me. My Instagram is always down in the comments as well. You can message me on Instagram if you want to. And I think that's it from me, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and I love interacting in the comments. So if you want to leave me just an emoji to let me know that you were here, let's do a latte for Legends and Lattes. Let's do that. So go ahead and leave me a cup of coffee down in the comments if you want to just leave an emoji. Thanks, everybody. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you on Tuesday.